Recording here on my end. Yeah, because when you do the Skype recording, it like makes our screen split. So like as long as you're in the center, otherwise you're like half your face is gone. Okay, we're good. So you want to get started?
Burrito.
With your burrito? Yeah, we could just do.
Yeah, I do.
Like the Korean shows have those like Korean YouTubers who just eat like noodles on screen for like hours, like live streaming noodle eating.
Or like hot wings.
Oh yeah.
My husband's obsessed with that one.
Wait, is that the show? Like there's a hot wing show, right?
Yeah, the premise is that they interview celebrities and they have to eat progressively hotter wings.
Yeah.
And sometimes the reactions are interesting. And I guess it's sometimes difficult to lie if you're distracted by how hot what you're eating is. You might get different answers.
That's interesting. They got some pretty big celebrities on there. It's amazing, right? Because you think, oh, it's like a YouTube show, but that's like TV now, right? I mean, that's mainstream. Yeah. That's huge. They make a lot of money. I mean, they have big celebrities on that show. I mean, that's like the old, game shows or talk shows. It's in a studio. It's TV, right?
Yeah.
But you have your burrito live stream hour.
I also have my Wegmans brand Angry Water.
Wow. You're really just doing, this is all sponsored product placement.
Yeah. Yep.
And everything. Yeah. My mic is good. Yeah. So, we, have some news on your end or something. It's not news anymore, right? Is this like been a month or two or?
It's still news.
Yeah. So what's the news?
So for me, the news is that I finally quit my job that I liked the job. I was frustrated with some organizational changes, and there were enough of them that it didn't matter how much I liked the work.
Yeah.
And I had also for a while been playing around with the idea of dancing more, of maybe starting up a company or running some classes or just teaching or dancing more myself. And I had kind of looked ahead into the future for the projects that were planned. And I said, maybe I could cut back to part-time.
Oh, you mean at work, like the work projects? Like
Yeah. Or maybe I stay on for this transition to the new software, and then I just never learn the new software, and I eventually quit. So I had been thinking about working less and dancing more, but over like a 1 to 2 year time frame. And then I just got frustrated enough that I was like, look, I'm just done. I'll just leave now.
So was that like a surprising decision on your part? Like one day just something happened, or was it like
yes, something very specific happened, and I said, you know what? This is the sort of miscommunication where HR is probably going to set up a like behavior discussion moderation meeting where they're going to say, Amanda, you can't ask questions of your boss about game theory. You're embarrassing him. So I said, you know what? You don't have to set up that meeting. I'm not going to sit through that meeting. I don't want to have to do a year-end performance review where I explain why I ask questions in meetings, because I'm supposed to ask questions during meetings.
Yeah, so you preempted that. You're just like, you saw the future. You're like, you don't want to go through that process. Yeah.
I said it's bad enough. I said it's bad enough being here right now. I don't want to pretend that I enjoy being here for the privilege of staying here longer.
Right.
Especially if I'm already planning on leaving. And so once I had that epiphany, I just left. I warned HR. I said, hey, look, I had a fight with my boss's boss today. I'm sure he's going to follow me down here, but I'm going to go work from home. And when I come back tomorrow, I'm going to tell you how much longer I'm going to be working here. So you don't really need to set up he's going to want to set up meetings. He's going to want to talk about stuff. Don't worry. Don't bother. You're not going to have to. You're only going to have one more meeting tomorrow. And I came back the next day and they said, so how long are you thinking of staying? Is there anything we can do? And I said, no, there's nothing you can do. I'm going to be here for like another hour. And I left.
And so was that epiphany, was that during work? Or was that like at night afterward you reflect on? Or was that like in the moment, like at work?
It was in the moment. I said, no, I don't need to do this. And I was trying to even say that in the moment during this argument. I was trying to say, we don't need to be fighting about this. We don't need to be talking about this. And he kept insisting, no, maybe we should have a group staff meeting where we discuss this. And
so during that meeting, in your mind already, you're like, I'm quitting.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, I'm quitting. We don't have to go through all the trouble. Yeah. I've already decided.
I was like, I don't need to do this. This bothers me enough that I would just quit. And if you think that it's not important to me, it is. I'm going to just, yeah.
Yeah. And it's because, your mind has been, even before that, you were thinking about in a year or two phasing out or doing something a little different, right?
Everyone's familiar with senioritis.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's familiar with, if you quit your job and give notice, how difficult it is to care about getting anything done for those last 2 weeks.
Right.
Or the worst version, if you work with anyone from Europe or the UK, I believe they have to give like 6 months notice usually.
Wow. So they're just hanging on for 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah. You can't get anybody to do any work for the last 6 months. It's impossible. So yeah, it just sometimes once you've made a decision, or another one is like when you go to move
mm-hmm.
and you go, oh, well, I'm going to move. And you go, I'm just not going to vacuum for 6 months and a half until I move. Like, you just don't have to do that anymore.
Yep.
So yeah, sometimes there are these decisions you make that makes it, you've changed your focus, and it's not even, I don't even know if there's discipline or willpower. There's just, you've decided to move on and you can't just stay there.
Yeah, I totally understand while you eat your burrito, you can take your time and chew. Yeah, I totally understand because and this sort of, I feel like this sort of, definitive thing, it's better for everyone, right? Because you don't drag stuff on. You don't just, because, if you don't just stay on, I got to stay on for a few months to end the year bonus, and then people are going to set up all these meetings, and there's all going to be more drama. And you can kind of see it's, in a way, it's better for everybody else too, because then, you're out of the picture. You don't want to be there. They don't have to deal with whatever. They can focus on whatever else they need to focus on and such. And it's a clean break.
I didn't have to go to any going away parties held by people who don't really like me. I didn't have to graciously say thank you when any of that stuff. I didn't have to. It's now very obvious which coworkers actually liked me, mm-hmm. Because those are the ones who've reached out and found me.
Right.
I'll give you, I mean, if you think about it, when you quit and you don't give any notice, you don't get to say goodbye.
Yeah.
They had someone standing there while I packed up my things.
Right, because they don't want you to take anything or do anything on the computer or whatever. They just shut it off. Yeah.
Yeah, they're assuming that you're leaving because you're angry.
Right. So they shut off all your stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was great. That was great. No awkward goodbyes, no transition meetings. I didn't have to see everyone being anxious about what they were going to do without me.
Right.
And we had just hired an intern. And mm-hmm. so she set up now great. I have amazing documentation. She's going to be able to figure everything out. And everyone's going to think that she's this rock star. And I told her, I'm not here anymore. Tell them it's harder than it is.
Right.
Take credit for it. Take credit for everything I did. I'm not here.
Yeah.
I'm not, tell them it was harder. Tell them I was disordered. I don't care.
Right. Throw you under the bus. You're fine.
I will say that part of me being able to do this was related to the organizational changes, in that if I need a job reference, that is not coming from the person I had the argument with. That was not coming from my direct manager. So they had just reorganized such that the person who's giving me my reference has no consequences of me leaving. I did not work for her anymore. Right. So you would still be on good terms with the old group because you had, that work you'd done there was good. And then it was because of the reorg and stuff. Yeah. No, it was an incredible privilege to be able to quit like that. And a lot of my coworkers there were incredibly, I don't want to say bewildered, but sort of like, oh, hey, wait a minute, I can just do that. Right? Like, you forget that it's an option. And how long have you been at this company? I was there for about 5 years. Okay. And was that wasn't your first job, right? Post college? No, that was my my second company. Mm-hmm. but like maybe my fourth different role.
Right.
Um,
But still, 5 years is a substantial amount of time for someone who's pretty young. Yeah, I mean, it's a substantial chunk of your career.
and to be there for 4.5 years and then say they reorganized stuff and I hated it and I left. I'm not. I'm not exactly. You know, uh, Obviously, like I'm not finicky about it.
Yeah. It doesn't look like a red flag or anything. I think people understand. I mean, you talk to people, anyone who's been at corporate environments for a long time knows that things can just change under your feet like that and stuff. And you've been there a while and such. So,
Well, I mean, that's the thing is it's no longer the job that you applied for.
right. Oh yeah, it's a
They
very different company
surprised if you
organization.
don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah. No, totally. That totally makes. And also, like the thing I tell a lot of students is, and just young people is that like, especially when you're younger, right? Like switch, especially like in the tech sector, right? Like especially if you're a software developer, or you're data analyst and stuff. Like in the tech sector, like nowadays, especially, people switch jobs much more readily. It's like in the old days, like you work for IBM for 30 years and you're expected to like be a salary man or woman for your whole career and your company takes care of you and everything. You have a pension and stuff, but like those days are long gone, right? And now I tell students, especially, like, go find what you're passionate about doing. Like, and of course, it's good to have a safety net, but if your first job right out of college, don't stress too much about it. Get something solid, learn stuff, and then when it's time to move on, you move on to something else, and there shouldn't be a shame in that at all, right? And I switched jobs a bunch and I went to graduate school and stuff, and it is harder to do as you get older, right? I mean, if you have a family, you have more financial responsibilities, it does get harder to do. So what I tell students is, it's fine, especially when you're younger, like really go and explore. Man, I sound like a really walking cliche, but it's true.
Well, I mean, that's how this conversation started. Was I was saying, since I had that moment where I said I could just quit now, I don't have to have something planned. I kind of know what direction I want to go in, but just because I don't have the offer in my hand or the keys to the new dance studio in hand doesn't mean that I have to stay here. I just sort of started being open to a lot of different ideas. It's a different kind of optimism. And I actually had this is kind of like a the boomers are right story. If I can tell this real quick.
Okay.
So I've been looking for dance studio space to sublease because I'm not in a position I'm not ready to go get a business loan and actually buy a building.
Yeah, that's a big commitment. Yeah.
Yeah, I need to right now I'm kind of doing interactive market research to see if any of my business ideas would work. So I've been looking to sublease some space, and one of the possibilities in my town was to work with a ballroom dance studio, one of the franchises. So I email them, I say, let me know what your rates are for renting space. And I show up and the guy gives me the tour and he says, okay, well, the problem is we have to have an employee here while you're in the space for liability reasons.
These are subleasing.
Yes, I understand this. Yeah, like they're not going to give me a key to their building so that I can use it for an hour a week. Obviously, they're going to pay someone to sit there. And so he goes, okay, so essentially what happens is you have to pay for a private dance lesson. And then the dance instructor is just going to sit there and do nothing and you can use the space. I go, fine. He says, okay, but private dance lessons are $140 an hour. I go, that's kind of bullshit. And he goes, yeah, I know. He goes, that doesn't make any sense for you. I go, yes, thank you. And he goes, so what if I just hired you? And I go, are you kidding me? And he goes, yeah, I could hire you as a contractor and then you would work for me and you would count as the employee. And he says, I'll take 35 or 40% of whatever you make when you teach here. And I'm like, you haven't even seen me dance. You don't even know my last name. I am a woman who looks probably younger than I really am, who just wandered in here and was like, "Hey, have you ever heard of like, like postmodern contact improvisation? I want to like use your space to do that maybe." And I think 2 or 3 people might show up. And you want to hire me? And also, he added, he's like, "Oh, well, you do other types of dance." He's like, "You could teach ballroom here too." We dance together. You don't know anything about me. And he was dead serious. Mm-hmm. He was ready to give me a job immediately just because I walked in there and said, "Hey, I've got an idea for something I want to do." Mm-hmm. This is the other kind of okay boomer. Like, okay boomer, you're right. Sometimes you just need to go out there and talk to people and opportunities actually show up.
Yeah. I mean, why is that a boomer thing? Is that just something your parents always just say?
Well, like, because, parents are always like, "Oh, well, why don't you just go to like, oh, like you want to work for NASA. Why don't you just go down to the Goddard campus and like bring a copy of your resume and see if you can talk to the guy that drives the telescope?" No, that's not how you apply for jobs. You don't just walk into Walmart and say, "Hey, can I talk to the manager about a seasonal job?" Like, you go apply online.
Yeah, that's
legally
funny,
they don't even really do jobs like that anymore, because if it's not formally through their system, they can't quantify it. They can't be sure that it's equal. They can't. Whatever.
Yeah. All the procedures and bureaucracy in place. Yeah, no, I guess like these sorts of independently owned businesses is where this world of the 1950s might still exist. Mm-hmm. I guess the good parts of the 1950s. It's like, because it's like, if you own your own business, you can make these decisions, and it makes sense too, in the sense of like, so if you're a business owner, like the dance studio, the ballroom person or something, it's like you have a routine every day, and it's not every day that someone comes up and shows up on your door with that initiative, right? So that by itself is already impressive, right?
I mean, that's what he said. He was like, you wouldn't. He's like, "I assume you wouldn't be here if you weren't pretty good at this."
Yeah.
I was like, well, that's pretty big assumption, but I mean, honestly, it also wouldn't hurt him at all.
Right. Unless you burn down the place or something,
Yeah. But if I ran those classes and they never made any money, he doesn't lose anything.
Yeah, because the space will be unused otherwise for that hour anyways. Yeah. I mean, that's a nice thing, man. Having your own business gives you that flexibility, right? That you can make those decisions. I mean, you could make really good decisions or poor decisions, and it's it's very it's like a huge contrast to a big company job like many people are used to, right? It's like the job you just left. So how long was it since you left the job and you walked into the dance studio? How long was that?
Like a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks.
Okay, it wasn't like the next day.
It was like the first, but it was the first place that got back to me after I decided, okay, I've got this idea. This is the approach I'm going to start with. Now I need to start finding locations. And they were the first location that got back to me. And
yeah, it's still pretty fast.
I went to talk to them. And the first thing that happened was they're like, we could just give you a job.
So you reached out to places pretty quickly. I mean, you planned for a bit and you reached out to places. And of course it takes. So bring me back to the day, the day you decided to quit your job. Let's rewind back.
It was so good.
So that morning, you didn't know.
No.
Okay.
Nope.
And then by midday or whenever the meeting or whatever happened, you knew. And then, that night, what was the feeling?
I was very anxious. I was a little bit worried. Honestly, I was a little bit worried that they would try really hard to keep me.
Mm-hmm. So you have to deal with that awkwardness, like
that it would make it harder for me to say no. I was a little bit worried that I would have to deal with my direct manager's action or some of my coworkers' reactions, because honestly, I dodged a bullet. They are in serious trouble. They're not ready for year end, and other women in similar positions to me have just quit the company as well, if that gives you an idea of the atmosphere.
Right.
So they're in serious trouble. The people who are still there are going to be exceptionally stressed out and busy. I was actually looking to this year end to be so chaotic that it wasn't even going to be worth planning ahead.
So you were, even if you stay in your job, that would have taken up so much of your energy, this year end. Yeah.
Um, but I mean, like I barely slept. I spent the whole night trying to imagine how these different conversations would go. And that's when I had another realization, which was that this manager that I was frustrated with, I was running kind of like a simulation of him inside my head. That I had devoted brain cells to projecting and imagining what his reactions might be to conversations. And this is something we do a lot.
Yeah.
You either replay conversations and play them out different with versions of people that you control or you project. And I was like, but wait a minute, I hate this guy.
Yeah, why would you spend all your brain power on this? Yeah.
Cells in my brain. He can't live there.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. I was like, my brain is only for simulations of people I like. And so people I don't like don't get to live in my head anymore. And I'm not going to waste time arguing with them in my head anymore. Which was also a really profound realization.
Right.
I didn't appreciate that I had so many people in my head.
Yeah. Well, I mean, especially at that time, right? I mean, that first reaction is very natural, right? So that first day is the anxiety of playing out, what the consequences would be, because you would still have to, you weren't going back the next day, or you were working from home, or, you still have to deal with them somehow, right?
Yeah.
Like, what was the official?
I had to go back one more time.
You had to go back one more time in person, or?
Yeah.
I see. So there was still something there that, wait, but that first day, it wasn't that they escorted all your stuff out. It was, you didn't officially quit yet. You said,
no, I said, I'm working from home. I said, I'm working from home. And by the way, I've been thinking of quitting over the next year or two. I might be quitting tomorrow. Right. Don't waste your time setting up meetings or anything. I'll be back and I'll confirm.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, that still makes sense. That night you'd be anxious about the next day, because that's the most immediate. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So the next day comes, and then, how did that play out, and how did you feel by the end of that next day, or, during that?
I felt amazing. So there's two things that happened almost right away that let me know I was making the right decision. Okay, so the first is that when I met with HR and I explained, I said, hey, I've been looking ahead. It looks like certain people aren't planning on me being here for very long. They're not training me on things that are coming up. I have been thinking about this longer term plan. And she goes, well, wait, what are you thinking of doing? And I explained that I want to dance more. And she was so happy for me.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So she was like, wow.
She was like, yes.
You get to do what you want to do. Yeah.
Yeah. She's like, you walk down the stairs so gracefully. Of course you should be dancing.
Yeah.
She's like, when do your classes start? When can I take classes with you?
Yeah.
Okay. And she was like, yeah, so this isn't about money. She's like, I'm not even going to tell them to put, like the meeting we have where they try to they
try to entice you to stay a bit longer. Yeah. You're like, all right, she knows your motivations, and it's, that's a good story too. Cause you usually think of HR as very robotic and representative of the company, right? So it's like in her official capacity, she has to do all this stuff, but as a human, she understands. Yeah.
Yeah. And I also, the email that they sent me with the here's your Cobra stuff, also included a note that, the woman who prepared that information for me, she said that I was the first person that she talked to when she started there. I don't even remember this. And she said that I was just, welcoming, and that it was just very nice for her to be like, I'm so happy for you that you're doing something that you want to do, you do your job here, but
Yep.
So that really helped. The other thing that helped, and this is another tool that I can't wait to use going forward, is I took a selfie.
Ah.
And
that's right. Yes.
And when I looked at it in my phone, I saw that 2 or 3 days before I had tried to take one to send to my husband. Mm-hmm. My husband's texting me, oh, hey, what's for dinner tonight? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. And I was going to send him a selfie. And it was just so sad. And I didn't realize how sad I was at work on a normal day.
Oh wait, was that selfie that was just of you, or was like it was just like
it was just me?
Like a normal picture?
I was just like sitting on my desk, like a selfie.
Yeah.
So sad that I couldn't send it to him.
Right.
And three or 4 days later, after I quit my job, and I took a selfie in the parking lot, and I saw these two pictures next to each other, and I said, "Oh, I am happier."
Yeah.
I didn't even was unhappy. And I think what I understood in that moment was that sometimes it's easier to see emotions on other people's faces.
Mm-hmm.
And that if I don't know what I'm feeling, I should take a picture of myself.
Yeah, I'm going to project this on the screen because you tweeted about it. Let's see if my split screen thing works. It might actually. Let me see if I share my screen. I'm trying to clear off my embarrassing desktop while you eat your burrito. Oh, that's you. And can you see that?
I don't see it, but...
Oh, you don't see it, but am I projecting my screen? Wait 1 second. Do you still see me?
I still see you.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Oh, now Skype is like snagging out and stuff, but okay, I'm gonna project this on the screen and see if people see it. Whoever's not tuning in now. But okay, yeah. So that picture.
People might tune in.
That's true. Well, I mean, this is not live, right? This is not live. It's recorded.
Yeah. But one of my coworkers was looking up Python resources and had to call me over to his desk, and he was like, "Do you know this ldquo guy?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "This is really you." And I go, "Yeah, this is really me on Philip's little podcast."
Yeah, you were on twice. Yeah, you're a third-time guest. Hopefully your picture is on the screen. So this is outside in the parking lot, or where is this?
One of them was just sitting at my desk, and the other was out in the parking lot.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, I just walked to my car, and I'm like, "Oh yeah."
Oh, here we go. I'm starting a share. Do you see that now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that's a super happy picture.
Yeah, that's parking lot picture here, and on your tweet, on your official Twitter account.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me unshare my screen. Hold on, my recorder is like snazzing out. Hold on. Stop sharing. Okay, did this work? Okay, you're back. I'm back.
Because I could see you looking at me on my screen.
I know, it's kind of freaky. Yeah, the recorder software had some like snag. They're like, "Oh, you don't have enough RAM to do this." Okay, yeah. So outside, you got your selfie, and then what?
Well, I mean, I looked at it and I was like, "Yeah, this is absolutely the right choice." I was like. Mm-hmm. I started telling people, and everyone was like, "This is a great idea. This is awesome. You're going to be great at this." And then I take a picture and I feel awesome. And like for the first time in months, I was like, "I'm beautiful." So yeah, I mean, I felt great. I went home. I think my husband gave me permission to do nothing for like a week. He was like, "Just enjoy not working."
Yeah. So how did he feel the night before? So you didn't tell him, I guess, the day before, right?
Oh, no. I told him because
you told him afterward, right? Yeah. I mean, you told him.
Yeah, like I was working from home. I came home.
Right.
And he's like, "What are you doing home?" And I'm like, "I'm working from home the rest of the day." And he goes, "Okay." And I go, "I don't know if I'm going back tomorrow." And
so what was his reaction initially?
I mean, I think he was shocked. I think he was surprised.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, first of all, he was surprised because I came home, in the middle of the day when he's working and I'm not supposed to be here.
Mm-hmm. So does he work at home?
My husband works from home.
Oh, okay.
He does data science on a DARPA contract right now.
Oh, so he does stuff from home. He can do stuff from home.
All the time, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I tearfully recount this argument, and it's the same as everything that I've told him for the last year.
Right.
And he goes, "We're going to be fine." And I'm like, "Yeah, we are going to be fine." He's got his job.
Yeah.
We have plenty saved up. We don't live in a big house. We don't have any kids.
Yeah.
And he reminded me that I was supporting both of us a little bit while he was in grad school and while
Hmm.
he was getting started with his career. And he says, it's your turn.
Yeah.
And also, I haven't not worked for more than a week at a
Wow.
time since like 2007.
Wow. Yeah. So since
Like I've had
college.
vacations, but I haven't
Yeah.
had a break.
That's 12 years. I mean, that's like, and you're, in your early to mid 30s. I mean, that's like a third of your life. Not
I,
counting school. I mean, it's like school plus work is like all your life, right? Unless you're like 2 years old, right? Yeah. Um, yeah, that's great. So then the next day, I guess the, day post selfie, then that was so but then that next week you didn't really do nothing, right? You got started right ahead with your plans, or you didn't just sit and do nothing.
yeah, I mean, I part of having part of the luxury of having this unstructured time is that I can actually do things I want. Like I was sitting at work all day having barely any tasks assigned to
Hmm.
me. I
Hmm.
had materially automated everything they asked me to do, begging them to tell me what language I should build the next version in, and they wouldn't tell me. So I figured they weren't going to ask me to build the next thing. So I'm sitting at work desperate to do more things, and I can't because I have to be at my desk
Hmm.
with this performative productivity and this pretending to enjoy being there and feeling like it's important.
Hmm.
And so now all of those things when you're sitting at your desk and you go, oh man, if I wasn't stuck at my desk, I would do this. Or, if I wasn't stuck at my desk, I would, you know, actually bring those pants to get,
Hmm.
tailored, or
Yeah,
I
yeah.
actually go do this. I could actually do a lot of those things now.
Yeah, so I guess thinking about being in the cubicle. You had a cubicle, right? Cubicle or open
That's part of
office?
it. I
Yeah, so
had a
it's
cubicle,
real cubicle. Yeah.
and then they moved us to an open floor
Oh,
plan.
wow. Oh, yeah. That's even worse.
These are these are like people who are accustomed to kind of a library environment,
Hmm.
and they moved us to an open space, and they didn't ask anyone for any preferences. Do you want to be by a window? Do you want to
Yeah.
be? This is actually, I find this is a very interesting problem, sort of related to game theory, which is
Hmm.
that honestly, if you take a group of people in this situation and you ask them for their
Hmm.
preferences among assigned seats in an open workspace, everyone thinks, oh, but we're all going to want the same seat. No, no, it doesn't work like that. Is people are different enough that
Hmm.
everyone has a variety of preferences that you'd be surprised at how easy it is to give everyone their favorite seat.
Hmm. But people just don't do it because they're afraid that everyone's going to fight for the window seat or whatever, right? And so then everyone loses in that way.
And University of Chicago would do this with their dorm rooms, is they
Hmm.
would have a lottery,
Hmm.
and you got to choose which room you wanted in your dorm. And everyone was like, oh no, I'm only like I'm 20th in line. The room I want isn't going to be available. And it was almost always your first or second
Hmm.
choice.
Hmm.
No one ended up in a room that they hated.
Yeah.
So yeah, they moved us to new workspace. I will add that we didn't really have laptops. So it's not like we were actually flexible and able to get up and reconfigure our working spaces and collaborate
Right. So
effectively
you
in a
had to be at desktops
technological limit.
anyways. You had
There
to be
were
stuck.
desktops,
So just basically no walls. It was just
no
instead of cubicles,
walls,
just
and
all desks. Yeah.
2 to 3 feet away from each other. And
Uh,
part of that is the problem is that this manager that I hadn't needed to deal with could now see me all the time
yeah.
and give me more work to do and micromanage me and interrupt conversations he wasn't a part of. And he didn't really, as a manager, have the restraint to know that if they put you in an open space in the middle of in the middle of all of the people you're managing, you need to give them space.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, it's like textbook, from bad to worse. Now, I was about to ask you because with the cubicle you had some privacy still, but now in the open space. So, like, I was about to ask you, in that time that you were, underutilized at work and you're waiting and stuff, like, obviously you couldn't just go out and run errands around town, but like, did you feel like you had the ability to just look up stuff online or look up stuff on your phone, or at least do something that you wanted to do, or you felt that was not doable because you're around all these people and stuff and being interrupted?
I felt I could do a little bit of it, but I think the thing that was the most frustrating was it was difficult to plan when I would be needed to do work.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And a lot of what this job was about was being flexible and saying,
Right.
okay, year end is going to be devilishly bad.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead and take it easy. Like go get a coffee, like go home early. Plan stuff ahead now if you can, but like we know it's going to be worse. It'll be like 60 plus hour weeks
Yeah.
for a month and a half. So take it easy now. But you never knew when something would come in and they would say, oh, they need this tomorrow.
Right. So there may be some urgent thing that comes up. So like, it's just this idea that
I could check out completely. So
yeah.
for example, I could maybe read a comic book.
Right.
Or I could maybe take an extra long lunch and get groceries while I was out.
Yeah, but you didn't have that structured time. I mean, you didn't have that time and the place, and it felt not the right place either. If you're surrounded with coworkers, like no, it totally makes sense that even though you could start planning something or looking up dance, like you just didn't want to do it because it's it's not the right setting. Yeah, not the right mood either.
Well, and I also technically that's not the right word. Deep down, I don't really want to be in charge. I want someone else to do it the way that I want it.
Right.
So there's also a little bit of comfort in being part of a big company where everything's taken care of for you. And I was just kind of waiting around for someone else to do what I wanted with dance in the Frederick area. And it turns out that sometimes you don't wait. Sometimes you just have to do it.
Yeah, and it's so in your in your one imagined possible parallel universe future, you would be at your job for a year or two, and then maybe someone in your area would do a dance thing and you would want to join up with them or be more involved. Would that be the more gradual path?
Yeah, and yes, and I had also already spoken to some of the other contacts I have in the area about they wanted to start something, and I said, yes, absolutely, I will help you. Let's meet up at this time and place, and then. Oh no, I have a migraine. I can't be there. And then I never hear from her again.
Right.
Or, so a lot of people who are doing creative endeavors on the side let it go let it be casual. I don't want to say unprofessional, but it's not given the same priority they would give it if it was their only thing. And that's kind of what this has given me is the space to say, no, the only thing I'm going to do today is pick out a picture to put on my website and look for music for a dance class.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Yeah, I mean, like, in this example you gave, it's that like, the people with interest in this, right? It's like they are truly passionate and they're honest and they're earnest about it. But then if they have a job or they have kids to take care of, they got family stuff, it's like that hobby is always going to be the last priority, right? And like they're not going to be able to devote their full brain power to doing that. And, you have the ability to do that now. And just that fact alone, puts you well ahead of everybody else who may want to do that, right? Because you have the space. Yeah.
And understanding that limitation is actually kind of the strength of what I'm doing is everything I've designed, I'm starting by aiming at my demographic, which is adults who are working, who can't pay in advance, who don't want to register for 6 months of classes, who don't want to be in a recital at the end of the year, who don't know if they'll be there next week, who don't own dance shoes anymore. Everything is kind of aimed at the sort of hobbyist level. And kind of trying to build a community around that level to see what the next steps are.
Yeah, I think we talked about this last time when you were on about dance a lot. And what you're saying is that there was the really serious people who are like super seriously into it, but then that's so few. And then there's not much of a room for, like you said, people like yourself who want to really do it. But, I guess people like yourself last year, right? You still had a job and all these professional responsibilities uphold, but they want to express themselves in this way, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I look at how many dance studios there are in this area, and there's probably, let's see, each studio runs 5 to 10 classes a night. Each class has 10 to 20 girls in it. So and then there's 4 of those studios. So there could be 1,000 girls every night of the week who are taking dance classes. Maybe like, I don't know, maybe like 10 of them will become professional dancers.
Yeah. It's very few. Yeah.
Let's be generous and say maybe 100 of them.
Yeah. That's pretty high.
That's 900. High. That's 900 people who become adults who have some dance experience, who liked it at some point and don't have any options available.
Oh, so you're saying these are for kids, like the kids dance classes?
Well, when you're not a kid anymore.
Right.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying, is that there's thousands of kids taking dance classes every night, and then they graduate high school and they have nothing. Yeah.
No, that's totally, and they might have some stuff in college, but then after college, there's really a cliff, right? It's like this. No, it's this really interesting thing where, it's like this. Yeah, whenever you put the word adult in front of stuff, it sounds dirty, but it's like adult hobbies, right? Or adult, whatever, right? It's like, we understand that kids have hobbies and they have structured activities, and that's part of childhood, but it's like, that shouldn't just be a part of childhood. It should be your whole life, right? But we don't have the kind of structures in place to support that well into adulthood for especially in artistic endeavors like that. Yeah. Sorry, you were saying?
No, I mean, like, if you've got more questions, I just wanted to say that one of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you about this specifically was one of the earlier times we talked, maybe not on one of the podcasts, but maybe the first time we seriously reconnected was talking about turning 30.
Oh, yeah. I sent a survey about that and emails and stuff. Yeah. Okay. Turning 30. Yes.
And how a lot of the people that you spoke to talked about there's sort of a sense of stability or contentment that we were achieving as we hit 30, sort of a sense of like, okay, I'm comfortable with who I am. I'm kind of, accepting of like what my role is going to be in life. Like I've realized I realized I'm no longer going to win a Nobel Prize. I'm no longer going to be a professional dancer. And you sort of see what your life is going to be like, and you say, no, actually, this is really great. And that we kind of decided this is what turning 30 was for a lot of our cohort.
Yeah.
I want to say that having that stability and contentment for 5 years is what got me to a place where I was able to be open and say, okay, yeah, I'm content with everything, but why not change literally everything in my life? And I think it's a really interesting dynamic. I'm wondering if more people from our group are feeling that. I've spoken to a few other people who have had moments this year where they've just said, no, I'm doing it. I'm just going to do something else.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that, part of it is 30. And also I think it being around your early 30s coincides with, you working in the professional world for about a decade, right? So, people out of college or even doing mini graduate programs, you're out at around 23, 24 at most. And then, 8-10 years, that's, early 30s. I think that your story is fairly, maybe other people don't have as dramatic of a I quit on that day story, but I think it's fairly, it's not too uncommon that, maybe people either switch jobs or they decide, let's say they have kids, right? And they decide not to work anymore because they're like, this is gonna be my priority from now on. Or they move somewhere really different and stuff. And it's, I think it's a thing. And it's.
But it's not. See, the thing is this a midlife crisis?
No, I don't think. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it's a crisis. Yeah, I don't think it's as cast as midlife crisis kind of cast as a negative thing, right? But I don't think it's a negative, thing.
That's the thing is I'm suddenly realizing that so people joke about midlife crises. Right. They're like, oh yeah, you turn 45 and you go get a red sports car or something and it's usually cast as sort of a realization that you're going to die soon and you need to keep having fun. And I mean, I guess maybe that's the joke version. Maybe the real version is that people reach a level of confidence and a level of security and a level of stability where they can say, no, actually, I can do whatever the hell I want. And it's the life too short, but the good version.
Yeah. No, I think we are stereotypically a bit younger, like a decade younger than the 45-year-old balding guy version of this. But also, like, I think it's also that, again, this, we can talk about this a bit too. There's a lot of, first world privilege, according to all this, right? That we have stable incomes or, spouses with incomes and, somewhat of a safety net, right? In the worst case, everything goes south, you can move in with your parents for a bit and stuff. There's a safety net involved in being middle class, which is obviously really important. But, given that, right, given most of our peers have some kind of a base safety net, I think it's also the realization that, like, there are several things. I think one is that, like, you kind of see that, work environments, right? They vary a lot and stuff, but you could just keep working in that forever and there's no end to it, right? Until you retire or die or whatever. And that's fine if the environment's where you want to be. But if it's not, then there's actually, there's no, like, reason to stay in that sense, right? Unless, of course, like, you really need to make ends meet, right? Unless, of course, like, if you quit, you have no money and you go broke. But, assuming people have some kind of a safety net or are flexible a bit, like, this is such a cliche again, but it's like your life isn't just your work, right? It's like nobody says that. There's no rule in life that says you have to be at a quote unquote legitimate desk job for your life or whatever, right? Like, it's great if you like it, but it's what a lot of people do by necessity or by choice, but there's no, like, rule that says that's has to be the case, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's almost nothing to be lost by just trying something different.
Yeah, totally.
Like the word, like, seriously, my company is so desperate for people and they're in such a bad situation. I could even go back to the same company in a couple months.
Right.
And like there's nothing wrong with just trying something different for a while.
Yeah. I've kind of, we're at the age where and I think that, if you're right out of school, maybe in your early or mid 20s and stuff, there is, I think the zeitgeist or whatever your peers are thinking is trying to build up their career. They want to get a good job somewhere. They want to rise up the ladder. They want to, make more money. They want to move to a, big city or whatever, right? Like, whatever people in their early 20s want, they're always thinking about updating their LinkedIn or, the college students I see, right? They're obsessed with needing to get job, which is legitimate, right? Like, what's on their minds is doing well in school and going to the career fairs and interviewing for jobs and doing LinkedIn. And, like, that's the thing to do because they want to have some, because, understandably, if you're a resume in college, you don't really have much. So you want to have that first job or two to establish yourself, and growth is what you really focus on. And then after a while, people are like, okay, they know people working various jobs and stuff, and they vary a bunch. They might have changed some companies, and they're like, okay, what do I really want to do for the rest of my life, right? Or at least the next phase of my life, right? And I think this is a time when people kind of realize that. So
I think some of that zeitgeist may also be people wanting to have more interesting versions of the cubicle jobs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, explain about that. Yeah,
because I really liked the technical work that I was asked to do, and I really liked the problems I was asked to solve. There was a mixture of as I've been learning over the last month, I've actually been doing data science already, but I had to call myself an actuarial associate instead. So there was a mixture of actual calculus and linear algebra, and then there was some stuff that was just write some code to automate this and do it 100 times in a row.
Yep.
And I liked those sorts of problems, and I liked explaining the answers, and I liked explaining them in a clear way, and finding more efficient ways to do it and to help people with related problems. And I liked all of that sort of stuff. But I sometimes wonder, I'm like, maybe if I was in charge of stuff, I would have had more fun. I'd always kind of intentionally, I mean, this is something I thought about with my manager, was I was like, I do not want to be a manager. So there are ways in the corporate world other than up, or at least there should be. Not everyone can be the boss. And you need people who are good at their jobs at the bottom, I guess.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. It's called the bottom of the tree, right? But no, that's totally
that
true.
Is unfortunate. Because it doesn't make sense to have all of your technical work done by entry level employees, and all of the experienced people who are good at their jobs just sitting in meetings doing nothing.
Yeah. I mean, that's a classic issue with organizational structure, right? That I mean, this is a huge topic too. And in some companies, some tech companies, they try to have more of a career ladder in the individual contributor and technical route, right? That they have, senior engineers and staff and distinguished engineers and stuff. But those are, again, it's like a company culture thing, right? So most companies, if you only have one ladder, by definition, the people up above in the tree are middle managers, and they're doing people stuff and meeting stuff and politics stuff, and there isn't as much room for growth in the purely technical arena and stuff. And I think this is a common problem, and this is a huge topic, but given people who are math or computer science or related engineering and STEM majors, now that we've been out of school for a decade or more, what you describe is a really common thing, right? Like, people are really into the technical work and the intellectual work, but then organizationally, to grow both in terms of prestige, quote unquote, right, and also in terms of money and other stuff, you do kind of get pressured into this people or project management path, which is not at all the kind of this sort of technical intellectual stuff that people find interesting. So I think this, talking about turning 30, like I think that's a common thread that is related, right, to all that you're saying.
Yeah. And also, again, just when I started my job, I definitely had that fear of, oh no, I'm going to be stuck at the bottom doing boring work my whole life. I need to work hard now to make sure that I'm noticed and I'm given interesting things to do. And then at some point you're like, no, this is interesting enough. This is fine. And at some point you're like, not interesting enough to deal with that asshole every day.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is just an inevitable. And I think you mentioned this indirectly earlier, but people do have this fantasy of, like, obviously it's the safest thing still is to have a big company job where, but people have this fantasy of, I want to do all the interesting stuff, and I wish I could not deal with all the other stuff that comes with being in a big organization, which is inevitable. Any big organization, no matter what sector you're in, it's just people, right? I mean, when you have thousands of people and organizational structure and needing to make money or meet some goals, stuff is going to happen, right? It's inevitable, right? And it's, some people, they deal with it within a big company by moving around, right? If you can find another division that fits a better need, but then you can get reorged, right? Like, I mean, that stuff happens, above you in the tree, these parts of the tree move around and you can't really control it, and you're just kind of swept by that force. But this is all stuff you already knew. I'm just reiterating for the audience.
No, you paint a very clear picture of the circumstances I found myself in.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, who are engineers, data scientists, programmers, mathematicians, in industry, it's a common thing. And, I've seen friends, some people deal with it by just embracing the business or management side. They're like, okay, yes, I do the technical stuff, but I know that in order to play this game and to rise up, I have to, go do an MBA or go do management training. And, really, again, it's like we were saying earlier, where do you put your mind in? And, for a lot of people, they put their mind into the organizational and the people parts. And that's what, what is valued in a lot of places, right?
Yeah.
But now you're on to something completely different, which is great. So I guess thinking about now, what is your brain filled with now? I guess, today, this morning, beyond the burrito.
So I had three things going on today besides this. I built a gingerbread house.
Oh, nice.
Because I can do that.
Yeah.
In the middle of the day now.
Yeah.
I am So I have a website up
Nice.
for my dance project, and I was looking at, so I followed sort of an agile development perspective here where I got a minimally viable website up that had just the most important information
Yep.
on it, but I had left spaces for some more background information I wanted to add. And based on the analytics for my website, I've had maybe like 100 people visit it. And like the third most popular thing they were looking at was one of those links that doesn't have any information yet.
So they try to click and then it was a blank thing.
They click and it goes to a page that's like, oh, this section's still under development, come back soon, or
So how do you think
whatever.
people found it? Was it all just Google searches? Was it all just web searches?
No, it's not Google searches yet. This is I created a Facebook event for the first dance class.
For Facebook,
which sends people to the website, and I have an Instagram account that sends people to the website. And so I think it was mostly through there. And a few people that I've met out, I don't have business cards yet, but I've had a few people send me emails, just from their phone while we were standing there. And when I reply to those, the email includes the website. Right. So it's all direct clicks. But so I saw that this section that people were clicking on that I hadn't populated yet, if people are clicking on it already more than the other information I gave them, I should probably put something there.
Picture of cats.
And actually the part that they're clicking on is I wanted a little section to explain what modern dance is, because that's the genre I teach. And so people are coming and they're seeing, okay, this is when the dance classes are. And then they're clicking on what is modern dance. And it says, come back soon for more information about like the history of modern dance. And so I think I need to put something there so that they know what to expect in more detail when they come to classes. Yeah,
this is great. I mean, this story is so interesting. It's very retro too, because it really reminds me of, the early days of the web, right? When I was, when people who made these were hobbyists or small business owners or people who were passionate about what they were doing, right? I mean, the charm of the early web, as ugly as it looked, was that there were pages about all sorts of hobbies, about Magic the Gathering, about whatever, right? People weren't trying to like, it wasn't all commercial and everything. It was really just, you want to learn about this stuff. You want to connect with the community. And now you're using these really modern tools, right? So Facebook events and Instagram are obviously really modern sorts of things to drive traffic to your site, which is really for, something in person, right? I mean, you're eventually offering something in person, but this is just information about it. Yeah.
No, you're right. It is very, it does feel a little old fashioned building it myself, but the tools that are available now are great.
Oh yeah. Website builders are amazing now. Yeah.
There's also tools. So I did register my business so that I could get a tax ID number so I could create a bank account. But real banks need you to have a minimum balance or make a certain number of transactions to avoid fees. And I'm in the situation where I'm expecting to make I don't even know if I'm going to be able to pay myself for a few months while I'm doing this. I'm hoping that I won't lose money is where I'm at. So $15 a month in fees, that may be the only $15 I make.
Right.
So I'm not going to have, $2,500 that I can just park in an account to avoid a $15 fee. But there are tools like PayPal, where there are no fees. You don't even have to have a balance. You can have an empty PayPal account and just let people start paying you that way.
Yeah, and they just take a little cut. I mean, they just basically take a small cut of every transaction. Yeah. So it's a lot easier now to start these things too, which is cool. And I mean, and the other stuff is that this is another cliche, but there is this, I feel like now, there is this demand for this authenticity, right? For lack of a better term, right? Such a cheesy term that companies do, but it's like, when they go to your site and they look at you writing this stuff and it's clear that it's one person, it's someone who's passionate about it, who's authentic and who's building up something in a local community. It's not some, giant franchise who's, trying to reach out to people on social media or whatever, right? There's something about it, because I think we're, people have been saturated over the last decade with all this super commercial stuff and ads and, ads everywhere online and blah, blah, blah and stuff. So like there is this longing for kind of community and authenticity and all this stuff that companies like try to do, but in a really cheesy way.
Yeah.
But, like, you can do it for real, like, because that is really what you're doing. There's no fake, you don't have to really try. You just do what you do. So there's something really cool in that.
Yeah. And it's maybe this would be a good last topic, but the part that I'm struggling with the most is it's really difficult to sell yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, in the case of dance, and this is kind of a psychological problem with dance in general, is that you are your product.
Yeah. And your body too. I mean, it's not just your face; it's your whole self. It's like very physical too.
Yes. I frequently say I'm like, visual artists they never get angry with their paint because it can't jump high enough.
Yeah.
And if they do, it's just the paint.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I'm essentially painting with my body, and if I can't do something with my medium, it's me that I'm angry with in a way that other artists don't have to deal with. So part of selling yourself is confidence and imposter syndrome, and this idea that I'm simultaneously authentic and charming because I'm not a professional, and also perhaps that means not really qualified to be doing it. So how do I walk that line and convince people to show up? Another thing is that dance is art, which makes it philosophically difficult to sell sometimes. Especially since I come from the school of dance thought that, like, I've had debates about whether sign language counts as dance. Does dance is is intentional expression through movement? I'm like, that sounds to me like sign language.
Yeah, that was on your last podcast. Yeah,
exactly. Our marching bands dancing. So I'm also from this philosophical school of, like, you shouldn't perform necessarily. You shouldn't be striving to be athletic. You should be very accepting of what's available, and you should look for what's interesting and beautiful in what you can do. Well, it's also kind of hard to sell because it's like, what am I going to teach you? Oh, well, I'm going to teach you to roll around on the ground in an interesting way, and it might feel good, or it might be a song about grief. I'm not sure yet. So it's difficult in a lot of ways to sell it. And I think that's kind of one of the things I'm having a little trouble is. Yeah,
that's a really deep thing. Yeah. I mean, that's a really deep thing in that it's like an existential or philosophical thing, right? So it's like this is the complete opposite of you is, you have these, Orange Theory, aerobics classes, they're giant franchise, and get people, or what is it, like the cycling classes or whatever. It's like, that's like super commercialized, super goal oriented, right? They're going to get you pumped. You're going to like lose weight, or you're going to have like meet some fitness goals. And it's very like, it's very mechanical in that way. And that's what gets people's endorphins going, right? They're like, I'm going to have this 10-week exercise plan. I'm going to lose 10 pounds or gain 10 pounds of muscle, and we're going to do this. And it's like completely the opposite of what you just described.
Yeah, except it's somehow still the same target demographic.
That's true. Yep.
Adults who want to do something active, working professionals with disposable income who want to do something active in their spare time. And so, that's the thing is there a percentage of people at Orange Theory or Soul Cycle who would rather do modern dance instead? That's what I'm checking. That's what I'm testing to see right now is, can I get some of that? How do I find those people? So I might have to go crash some Pilates classes or something, and oh no, I dropped my business card all over the floor. You guys help me pick them up.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, I don't know anything about this world, but it's almost like there's a, the parallel world to this is people who do, I guess, it's almost like group meditation or yoga, the non-exercise version of this, right? Something where it's more spiritual and more about,
But even yoga is very clearly selling an
Yes,
image.
yes, yes. That's right.
And
That's what I'm saying.
that's
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I'm sure that they have the same dynamic there where they're like, "Oh, but really flexible, pretty women wearing
yeah,
all white
yeah,
doing yoga outside is how you sell the
yeah,
classes." So I have to try to do that even though that's not who I am.
yeah,
I feel like this existential drama is a dynamic that yoga teachers are familiar with as well.
yeah. Oh, yeah, or anything that's spiritual and very personal, and it's kind of bordering on artistic, right? So the artistic and spiritual, whereas it's like, oh, we got to make a living and like do these classes and market. And I mean, the other thing about dance that you kind of alluded to is that it's it's you, but it's also your body, right? It's very physical and it's very literally people are seeing you and your body, and that's a super personal thing. And
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. And that is something I'm hoping I can bring into the classes and talk about a lot because I want people to be comfortable with that.
yeah,
It's also something I talk about when I teach like blues or swing dancing as
hmm,
well, is like this is your body. Like you can't be like you're going to feel frustrated, but you can't take it out on yourself.
hmm,
And these are other people's bodies. Like you can't be frustrated. You need to figure out how to channel that really natural frustration in a way that doesn't hinder your connection with other people
yeah,
and doesn't hinder your connection with yourself.
yeah. I mean, there's a lot there, right? I mean, because there's obviously a thing with our physical bodies as we age, also, right? I mean, again, we're not all 10 years old and super flexible
Yep.
and kids and dance, right? As we age, we have more limitations, and how do you work with that and your partners and stuff? And it's yeah. I mean, now that we think about it, I mean, this is like it's so much about just our experience of being human too, right? Because we're not just disconnected brains in a blob, right? I mean, we all have bodies, and regardless of whether we do dance or not. I mean, I guess most of us do, many of us do dance according to your definitions, but it's yeah. I mean, we live with these bodies every day, and I think about this more. But yeah, I guess final thoughts. I mean, we covered a lot from from day one of your decision. So how long has it been? A month or 2 months or
It's been like a month and a week.
a month and a week? So it
It
was
was
mid
it was the
November.
beginning of November.
Oh, beginning of November. Nice, nice.
And I was quite excited to notice that with that timing, even if someone got back to me about a job offer right away, I would not be working until the next year.
Right, right, right,
I knew I was guaranteed at least like a month and a half of doing nothing.
right, right. Um, yeah. I mean, at this point, your plan is to keep doing this, right? I mean, your point is not to be actively looking for another similar job, right?
At least not full time.
Yeah,
My plan is to do this to do this enough to get the information I need to know what the next steps are for a business plan.
right, right.
To know if I'm establishing a nonprofit, to know if I'm buying a building and starting a
Hmm.
studio, or if I'm just going to cut my losses because only two people ever come to class
Yep.
with me. Uh,
Very data driven. Yeah.
I mean, that's my strength. I have to have the information to make the decisions.
And I guess on the final note, thinking about this, another theme that I've had conversation with people about is, this is again a super cliche, but it's like, how much does money constrain you? So obviously, if on one end, if you have to work for a living and health insurance and family and whatever, then you're pretty constrained because you need to make at least however much money and stay in your job, and you don't have that much of the freedom, right? And on the other hand, there are people for which, money is not as much of a constraint. You can live off of less. You might have a partner with income as well. And that gives you more freedom, right? And that, everyone has a different balance in their head. So for you, thinking ahead, how constrained are you think, by the money thing, right? Like if you're able to make a little bit, is that okay? Or do you need to make more and that's harder? Or would you be okay doing this and then maybe doing some, data stuff on the side? And like, in your head, how much have you thought about this, in the medium term, at least the money issue?
Um, I am disappointingly not very constrained by it. Um, I
Why is that disappointing? That could be
because
freeing.
it can be, but sometimes it's easier to choose what to do
That's true. That's
if you
true.
have constraints.
Right.
So
That's true.
I don't need to work for a little while. And by a little while, I mean, I think my husband and I could both quit our jobs and not have to work for like 3 years.
Wow. I mean, that's very good. I mean, that's very
Yeah.
fortunate. Yeah.
So, I mean, honestly, like I could never work again and we would be
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's
As
very
long
fortunate.
as,
I mean, that's,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah. Not everyone
Yeah.
has the combination of employable skills
Yeah.
and, lifestyle that my husband and I have that lets us do this. So, I would not be interested in running something that was not at least self-sustaining.
Yeah, something sustainable.
So,
least, yeah, because you don't want to lose money. You don't want to just be losing money, or
I don't want to be paying. I don't want to be paying for it.
Yeah.
But that may involve going. Like there are more interesting routes. Like if you're a nonprofit, you're eligible for arts grants. In which case, that can subsidize losses in running classes to make them stay available.
Yep.
So that's something I need to measure is there like a $10 a week shortfall or is this something that I need grants for? So I'm not interested in setting something up that isn't sustainable.
Sure. That makes sense.
But I mean, I have the information, I have the idea, like I could go get a loan even. This isn't something like I don't have to pay for it myself. I don't have to I could just go get money and create a business plan and go get a business loan and just do it big.
But your ambition isn't. I guess the ambition isn't to build
moving.
A giant business or anything. I mean, that was never your ambition to.
I mean, I have had this really cute thought of getting a good building and opening a studio and kind of doing the thing with the little girls during the day and switching to adults at like 7:00 and letting the space get used for like salsa dancing or ballroom dancing and stuff at night. So my hours would be more like 3 p.m. to midnight. Let theater groups rent it out for rehearsal space or like let musicians in there affordably. And I had this really cute thought of meeting up with the woman who took over the dance studio where I learned and having our dancers be pen pals.
Oh, wow.
And like we could go.
Wait, where was this? Is this same town?
Upstate New York.
Okay, that was your home. Okay.
Yeah, so I was like,
dream.
We could like do like a little summer camp thing where we go visit my dance studio in upstate New York and they get to dance with other girls who would be living 10 hours away and dance exactly the same way that they're learning in Frederick somehow. So I was like, it could be dance pen pals. That would be so cute.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So, I mean, I have had thoughts. I know
of bigger things. Yeah.
I could go bigger. There's a space in Baltimore, which does something very similar. They do dance, they do yoga, they do they do like the aerial silks. They do other weird movement stuff. They do hip hop, they do African, they do Zumba, they do like yoga teacher training. So it's just a variety of things related to movement that they do all in this one space, and it's all aimed at adults, and it's very affordable and drop-in pricing, and they've got like a cool space where people just hang out sometimes. So I'm like, I feel like my city's almost big enough for something like that. So I don't know. I have ideas. I could go big, but like I said, I'm data driven, and I need to prove that any of it will work.
Yeah. I mean, and I think also just the fact that, I mean, again, this is going back to the beginning, is that now that you're, it's like we all have limited brain power to think about these things, right? And now that your brain can think about this stuff, and turn on it, and at night, and your subconscious and in your sleep, you can turn on it. It's a beautiful thing in that you're just keeping your eyes and ears open for that. So, for example, you keep your eye on this Baltimore thing, and if your town starts growing to a point where that's sustainable, you'll be the first one and you're like, oh yeah, we could do this. But if that opportunity doesn't come, then you stay with this. So it's like, it's just that like you have your eyes and ears peeled for this stuff now. Whereas when you're working full time, you just couldn't, right? Even if you wanted to, you couldn't think about it. You just had no time.
I mean, it's even things like I was standing in the Starbucks like 2 weeks ago and a little swing song came on and I was doing some Charleston while I was waiting in line. And I made eye contact with this guy and I was like, I'm pretty good, right? And he was like, yeah, actually it's pretty good. And I said, do you want to learn? And he said, oh, I don't know, maybe. And I was like, I teach swing. Do you? And I was like, do you and like your friends or your, I don't know, your wife, do you want to come take swing classes? And he goes, oh yeah, but we're from Harrisburg. And I was like, oh, I'm not driving up to Pennsylvania. But those sorts of things just keep happening over and over and over. And I'm now for the first time in my life kind of open to that.
Yeah, I think that's a great example actually, because it's like, in theory, you could have done that at Starbucks last year, right? Or whenever, but you just don't think about it because you're like, I got a job here, and it's like, I'm not really thinking about it. And it's like these things happen now over and over because it's kind of like you make them happen, right? It's like you just talk to strangers and you observe these things and that's on your mind. Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah. It is weird. It's weird in the sense that it's like, it is weird, right? It's like,
it's dangerously close to people saying like, oh, like project the sort of energy you want to see in your life and like positive thinking. And I'm like, actually, but my positive thinking is actually explicitly changing the behavior that I see around me. I never really believed in it.
Yeah, it's a there's a slippery slope to like the super, super dangerous line, positive thinking, don't take any medicine.
Next time you see me, I'm going to have like crystal earrings and I'm going to like this whole room is going to have like tapestries and like candles and stuff.
Yeah, it's like one step away from you have, a tumor on your face and like just magical thinking. Like, no, just get that thing removed,
Well, I think what it speaks to is just a lack of language around these ideas because
totally
we don't know how to talk about them without making them sound magical or stupid.
Yeah. No, that is totally true. And I can tell you a little bit about some stuff offline too that, I will hopefully podcast or blog about in the future, but I'm still in the midst of it. So have a teaser. But I guess the final thing that went on, like your Starbucks example, is that it's so true, right? I mean, it seems so, this is like maybe the boomer thing in the beginning. It's like, if you just go to Starbucks or whatever, or wherever you're out during the day and you just talk to strangers about something or whatever, most of the time nothing comes up, but sometimes some random thing comes up and it's like most of us just don't do it because that's just not what we think about, right? But it's like when you're in that mindset to, you hear a song on at Starbucks or you see someone at the grocery store or something, these serendipitous interactions just add up, right? It's just a chance thing. But most of us don't open ourselves up to that because that's just not, what's on our mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really cool. So any final thoughts for the...
We've had like half an hour of final thoughts.
Yeah,
so
we covered a lot.
All our thoughts are final.
All our thoughts are final. All right, this is awesome. Let me I'm gonna stop the recording. We'll go to super secret private session now. All right. Well, thank you so much for you're the only third time guest.
Oh wow, third time?
Yeah, it's your third time. You're the only. I've had a few second times, but you're the only third time. And also, another thing is that I think I've had 50 so far, which is actually a lot. I've had 50 podcasts with some repeat guests, and I actually stopped doing them for a while just because like I didn't really think about getting anyone new, and there wasn't really anything. Like maybe it was like this thing, kind of what we're talking about, right? It's like I was really excited about this stuff before. I scheduled people, I was really active, and after a while, it's like I've done it. If something really interesting comes about, I'll do it, but I'm happy with the set I've done. And then your thing came up and it was, obviously interesting enough. So you're number 51. So you're, I think you're one of the first ones too. And then you're also, number 51. So, that's that. Okay, cool. Let me stop the recording now. Okay. Yeah, this is awesome.